Colonel Potter, sir, my last wish is to be buried in my mother's wedding gown.
I've seen these Dodgers for 40 years. All the tricks. Dismissed.
Picture American television without MASH. It's hard to do, isn't it? That's because the show wasn't only hit, but it redefined what a sitcom was. First broadcast in 1972, at the end of the Vietnam War, MASH * took place in the Korean War and intertwined humor with tragedy. Its offbeat characters probed the chaos of war and strength of human spirit. It was a hit with audiences immediately. But off-camera, the show was always changing. As it delved further into social commentary and intricate character development, tensions occasionally flared. A number of much-loved performers ultimately made the tough decision to move on. Were their departures personal, professional, or as a result of creative differences? The motives might amaze you. Let's take a closer look at what actually transpired. History of MASH, a war story told with heart. There's plenty to unwrap with this one. But before we dive in, let's turn the clock back and examine how this iconic series was born. As with many other flawless television series, the history of MASH starts not on TV, but in a book. In 1968, Korean war surgeon Richard Hornberger wrote under the pseudonym Dr. Richard Hooker, MASH, a novel about 3 Army doctors. The novel was a dramatized telling of his years as an Army surgical hospital doctor during the war in Korea. And thanks to its blend of gallows humor with touches of human kindness and bitter truth, the book quickly became a bestseller, attracting the attention of Hollywood in the process. 2 years later, when the book was published, Robert Altman's film adaptation MASH, a satirical black comedy that was irreverent yet sobering, hit the screens. The movie featured Donald Sutherland as Hawkeye Pierce and Elliot Gould as Trapper John, and it resonated with the public, particularly since the Vietnam War was looming large over American minds. The movie went on to become a critical and box office hit, winning the Palme d'Or at Cannes and an Academy Award for Best Screenplay. But the true cultural explosion occurred 2 years later when CBS developed the idea into a weekly television series. Created by Gene Reynolds and Larry Gelbart, the television series MASH premiered on September 17, 1972. It retained the war setting and the quirky humor, but added more of a serialized, character-based approach that enabled more introspective emotional storytelling. Alan Alda entered as Hawkeye Pierce and soon took center stage in the series. The first season, which suffered from ratings so low it was almost canceled, caught a break from CBS when they relocated it to Saturday nights. Ratings skyrocketed. So did the cultural influence of the show. To some, the show also broke rules. It was Hollywood's first of its sort, trying new format, incorporating genuine war footage, and even was one of the first American comedies to have helicopter sound as a regular occurrence rather than a laugh track. Alan Alda, who acted in the role of Hawkeye, went on to become a director, writer, and creative force behind the series, asking for greater realism and emotional depth. But as MASH grew up, so did its characters. And let's just say not everyone on the cast agreed with the new direction. Some felt their parts were diminishing or that they were being turned into caricatures. Others grappled with personal demons or felt the need to try other creative avenues. Overall, during its 11-year run, MASH experienced many changes in its cast, but it never strayed from a single goal, presenting the price of war in terms of empathy, humor, and unconquerable human ties. With this in mind, let's get right into the first big exit from a series, an actor whose departure was so sudden, the writers opted to murder his character in a plot twist that stunned the country. McLean Stevenson, if you ask veteran MASH aficionados what struck them hardest, chances are they'll say the last shot of Season 3's finale, Abyssinia, Henry. It was a single line, spoken softly by radar, and it revolutionized everything. Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake's plane was shot down over the Sea of Japan. There were no survivors. That moment was pioneering, not only in that it shocked viewers, but in that it was the first significant departure of a main MASH cast member, McLean Stevenson. So how do we arrive? McLean had been an integral part of MASH since the very start. As the friendly, frequently bewildered commanding officer of the 4077th, his persona, Colonel Henry Blake, was the ideal counterpoint to war's madness. Where Hawkeye and Trapper introduced rebellion and humor, Henry Blake introduced humanity, sometimes frazzled, sometimes bewildered, but always good-natured. During the early seasons, McClane's acting brought him widespread acclaim as well as a Golden Globe. He was hilarious, down-to-earth, and adored by audiences. But behind the cameras, it wasn't as idyllic. Based on interviews and memoirs from the cast and writers, McClane became increasingly displeased with his character. As the show initially existed as a loose ensemble comedy, it soon devolved into focusing on Alan Alda's Hawkeye Pierce. And the more Alda was involved in the writing and directing of the show, the more his character came to carry emotional and narrative freight. McClane, on the other hand, grew frustrated. Frustrated enough that he actually once told People magazine back in 1975, "I want to be number one. I want to be the guy carrying the show." But as arrogant as this no doubt sounds, it wasn't really about McClane's ego. You see, McClane had these grand ambitions of being a star. He had enormous ambitions. But if there's something you should learn about Hollywood, it's that it's generally very simple for an actor to fall into a stereotypical part. And for McClane, he was tumbling into this hole that he had no desire to be in. He noticed the strength of television and felt he had the talent and charisma to host a show of his own. He felt he wanted to have opportunity where he would not be the second or third banana every time. He wanted to be first. At the conclusion of season 3, then McClane went to the producers and informed them that he would not be coming back. Now here's where things went wrong. Usually, when actors left sitcoms, their characters were explained away, quietly, transferred, reassigned, and perhaps even shipped off to be wed. But MASH was not a typical sitcom. Its writers, Larry and Gene, noticed a chance to take a risk. They wanted to remind audiences that MASH, at its core, was a war tale. That in war, not everyone comes home. And this was the ideal time. What followed was the classic Abyssinia Henry segment. In the segment, Henry Blake hears that he's being discharged and will be going home. There's laughter, crying, hugs, a merry send-off. For 25 minutes, it's a feeling of a happy ending. Then comes the last scene like a storm. Radar enters the operating room, hat in hand, face serious. The physicians are in the middle of operating on him when he drops the bombshell that Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake's plane was shot down over the Sea of Japan. There were no survivors. It was followed by a piercing silence audible across America. No orchestral sweeps, no laugh track or helicopter sounds, only shocked expressions and the humming of medical machinery. That one scene redefined television history. It was among the first of its kind where a popular sitcom character was killed off, officially and without notice. The raw emotions from the cast were partially genuine because only a handful had seen the finale in advance. Alda has since said that Gary Berghoff, the actor who plays Radar, was the sole actor informed ahead of time so he could prepare himself. The rest of the cast was acting genuinely during that final take. The moment it was on, the episode evoked an instantaneous and intense reaction. Thousands of letters flooded in to CBS, many of them praising the show's integrity, others outraged that such a popular character was removed so abruptly. Some went as far as to accuse the producers of overstepping their bounds. But Larry rationalized the choice, stating, "We wanted to say that not everybody gets to go home," and that they did. But what became of McClane after he left? Let's just say everything wasn't as sunny as he doubtless thought. Sure, things were fairly wonderful to begin with. He got a big contract with NBC, ready to set out on his own. He went on to star in the McLean-Stevenson Show, a family comedy based on his friendly persona. He seemed to be writing his own script and carving out a name for himself in the business, but it was not meant to last. His television show was dropped after one season and an attempt at a second season. With the show Hello, Larry did not fare much better. While much was hoped for and much promoted, the show tanked critically and was a laughingstock in subsequent years. In hindsight, McClane would wish that he stayed at MASH. In a 1983 interview with the Los Angeles Times, he acknowledged, "I took myself out of the game." It wasn't that his new programs failed so much, it was more so recognizing that MASH was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The cast, the writing, the effect. It was lightning in a bottle. Some of his co-stars, such as Alda and Loretta Swit, were sorry to lose him, but they also respected his need to do something else. Other actors wondered in private if he had jumped too fast out of something good. In spite of the regrets, McLean kept working in television and made the occasional guest star appearance on other programs, but never quite achieved the same kind of success or emotional resonance with the public playing Henry Blake. When he died in '96 at the age of 68, there were tributes flooding in from fellow actors and fans, with Alda describing him as a wonderful actor and a good man, and Gary describing him as a light-hearted spirit who brought happiness to all around him. Say what you want about McLean, but in a way, his passing provided the show with its heart. And that's the irony. While he might have quit to pursue his break, the part he quit turned out to be the most lasting of his career. But if you think that McLean's exit was nerve-wracking, then Wayne Rogers' exit from MASH was something else. Quiet, complex, and full of drama off-screen. Wayne Rogers, while McLean received a farewell episode, an emotional goodbye, and a moment that's in TV history, Wayne Rogers just vanished. We saw him in one show, and the next, poof, he was gone. No goodbye, no explanation, and absolutely no closure. Why, you may ask? Let's just say things aren't always as good on set as they appear to be on television. To determine what occurred, one has to go back to the start. Trapper John McIntyre was played by Wayne Rogers, half of the original comedic team that set the tone for MASH's early years. He and Alda's Hawkeye Pierce were the spark plug of the 4077th. The chemistry between the pair was like a magnet, and the public adored it, particularly when they chose to add in their quick-witted repartee, mayhem, and their unbending friendship. Watching a wartime version of The Odd Couple, minus the mirthful jokes, but with scalpel humor instead. Yet behind the jokes, tension was being secretly smoldered. It turns out that Wayne had signed up for MASH, believing the show was going to be an actual ensemble show, with everyone having equal screen time on the main cast. But as the series developed, a great deal of the focus began to fall on Alda's character. It quickly became apparent that Hawkeye was more than a co-lead. He was now the moral compass of the series, the emotional grounding. And before long after Alda, a talented writer and director himself, began to make significant contributions to the show's creative output, things really began to seem different. At first, Wayne did not care about Alda's success. In fact, the two were known to have been cordial off-set, but of course, he soon felt relegated. Alda's character alone appeared to be receiving some kind of maturity. The others merely seemed fixed in their cocoons from the beginning. Anyway, before he knew it, Trapper John had transitioned from a lead player to a supporting actor. And, as Wayne later clarified in interviews, it wasn't ego, it was integrity of storytelling. He once stated, Trapper didn't have much to do. He was one of two buddies, and then he became the guy who nodded at everything Alan said. But unlike McLean, who exited in a public fashion and was bid farewell, Wayne did it differently. Tactfully, and without complaint, he chose not to renew his contract after Season 3. Producers weren't even aware that he was officially departed until just before production resumed for Season 4. And here is where things become even more strange. Wayne's contract with the show was never actually signed. That means all along, he'd been working on a handshake. This was that when the producers threatened to sue him for contract breach, they had no grounds since he hadn't done anything. He had merely left a show he didn't think was providing space for his character to develop. His exit was sudden and it caught the writers off guard. Consequently, they were forced to reshoot the beginning of Season 4. In the premiere episode, they explained that Trapper John had been honorably discharged during Hawkeye's leave.